So on August 29th, we got the death of Gene Wilder. And what I'm going to show in this video is how his death is actually connected to a ton of other stuff that I've been talking about. His death is connected to the Nebraska Cornhuskers with the death of Sam Foltz, their punter. Also the Iowa Hawkeyes, who had a death of Kyle Calloway earlier this year. Even the death of David Huddleston, the guy who played one of the Jeff Lebowskis in the movie The Big Lebowski. It's even connected to Dwayne Wade's cousin dying, to Teddy Bridgewater getting injured. All of this stuff super interrelated. All of this stuff coded by the Freemasons, who literally control everything in our lives. The sports leagues, the news stories, the movies, all kinds of stuff. And when they do these deaths and these news stories, it's some type of weird riddle. There's always some type of riddle. It's some type of sacrifice involving something. Gene Wilder dies at the age of 83. The word football equals 83. And there's a whole lot more to this story that I will get to as we move along here. So, let's get started here. So we got Gene Wilder, dies August 29th, age 83. Gene Wilder, even born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I just talked about Dwayne Wade going to college at Marquette University that's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I talked about the Jerry Sandusky stuff and the connection to the movie Tommy Boy and how it connects to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Tommy Boy went to Marquette University just like Dwayne Wade. Even Chris Farley, he actually went to Marquette University as well. It's a Jesuit college. And the Freemasons, the Zionist Jews, the Jesuits, the royal family, they are the ones who worship this system. They're the ones who created it. They're the ones who use it. So also in regards to Wisconsin, we had the death of Sam Foltz, the Nebraska punter, also Mike Sadler for Michigan State, and the only player in that accident was the LSU player Colby Delahousse, or however you say his name, but they died in Wisconsin. Also, Cousin-Kaepernick didn't stand during the national anthem. That was the same day that Dwayne Wade's cousin died. They were playing against the Green Bay Packers, right? Green Bay, Lambeau Field, Wisconsin. Also, Colin Kaepernick is from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So, there's a big Wisconsin connection for whatever the reason. Wisconsin equals 44, kill equals 44. Nebraska, also with the S exception, equals 44. And there's a whole bunch more to it that I've mentioned previously, but I want to move on. So, when I hear the word Wilder, honestly, the only thing I ever think of when I think of Wilder, I don't think of Gene Wilder ever. I think of Van Wilder, probably because I'm younger. But when I took a look back at Van Wilder, one of the things that I noticed was the girl that he loves in this movie is Tara Reid. The only movies that I ever think of with Gene Wilder are Willy Wonka or, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Also, any movie with Richard Pryor, the one that I remember the most is the See No Evil, Hear No Evil. Also, Blazing Saddles, which I'm not really a big fan of it. Lots of people like it. Them are the only movies, though, that I think of when I think of Gene Wilder. And when I saw that Van Wilder had Tara Reid in it, I also remember Blazing Saddles has David Huddleston, the guy who was the Big Lebowski, who just died on August 2nd. And when I thought of that, I thought, that's pretty strange, because Tara Reid also is in the movie The Big Lebowski. The whole point of the movie is based around her character being kidnapped, or supposedly kidnapped, and she's actually married to David Huddleston in this movie. So, pretty interesting that she has a connection to Wilder, also to Blazing Saddles through David Huddleston. And I'll show why she's significant here in a little bit. She has interesting name gematria. She's also born on Election Day. So the movie Blazing Saddles also very fitting for all of the stuff that's in the media constantly. Dwayne Wade's cousin dying, and all the Black Lives Matter, all of the race stuff that's in the news. This movie about the black sheriff who becomes the sheriff in the white town back in the 1800s. I mean, they even say the N-word a bunch of times in this movie. So anyway, besides this movie, David Huddleston, the actor, and Gene Wilder have some interesting connections. David Huddleston in Gematria equals 162. And if you don't know what I'm talking about when I say Gematria and how I'm coming up with these numbers, I'll leave a link in the description called How to Gematria. Basically, it's coding letters and words and phrases into numbers. So D is the fourth letter, A the first letter, and then you just add them all up. So it would be 4 plus 1 plus 22 and so on. But I'll leave a link in the description. David Huddleston equals 162. Gene Wilder was born on June 11th, which can be written as 11/6, but it's also the 162nd day, so 162. Gene Wilder died of Alzheimer's, that equals 116. Dwayne Wade's cousin, Nikea Aldridge, equals 116. I also even talked about the death of Brian Clausen, the NASCAR racer who died in Lincoln, Nebraska, where the Cornhuskers play. He died after his 116th race of the season. So also Gene Wilder then, he dies on the day that leaves 124 days in the year, which also I talked about in regards to the death of the Big Lebowski. David Huddleston died on August 2nd, which was 124 days before December 4th, that can be written as 12/4. That's the day that the other Lebowski with Jeff Bridges was born. So David Huddleston dies 124 days before 12/4. And what's even more interesting, if you've been following my videos, I talked about the possible death of Ralphie May this year, the fat comedian, and I looked up a bunch of fat comedians, and they're all connected to the number 124. John Belushi died on January 24th. Sam Kinison equals 124. He died 124 days after his birthday. John Candy died 124 days after his birthday. Chris Farley in Gematria equals 124. A whole bunch of connections. Ralphie May even got his big start because of Sam Kinison, and Sam Kinison died 1 month, 24 days after Ralphie May's birthday. But now I'm starting to wonder if all of the 124 is literally just connected to famous comedians or just something in regards to comedians, since we got the death of Gene Wilder, who dies on the day that leaves 124 days in the year. And I mean, it's just odd that I just talked about it, and then we get a famous comedian die on a day that's connected to the 124 stuff. Also, Tara Reid, her last film was called Charlie's Farm. It came out in 2014 on December 4th. 12/4. Even called Charlie's Farm, right? It reminds you of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I've been talking a lot about Prince Charles, and if Queen Elizabeth dies, Prince Charles will become King Charles. There's been all kinds of Prince Charles coding, even the Cleveland Cavaliers beating the Golden State Warriors. A Cavalier is a follower of King Charles during the English Civil War. All of the Carolina teams that were in the sports championships last year, the Carolinas are named after King Charles. Lots and lots of other stuff, but just pointing out the fact of Charlie, Prince Charles, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Prince Charles in Gematria then even equals 68, just like Charlie's Farm. If you write out Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, it equals 134. If you write out King Charles III, it equals 134. And that's what Prince Charles will be if he becomes the new king. Also, I was thinking about it in regards to Nebraska and Iowa, farms, Charlie's Farm. I even talked about right after the death of Prince, when YouTube kept copyright claiming my old video and whatnot, and showing me the number 134, which I thought was connected to May 13th possibly. But back in that video, I talked about this purple weed that's growing in Iowa all over, and it's called Creeping Charlie. And purple, of course, Purple Rain with Prince the singer. Purple, just the royalty color in general. It's the red and the blue. The red and the blue were also very significant in the Alton Sterling Philando Castile stuff. And that's why Tara Reid's so significant. If you write out Tara Reid, her name in Gematria equals 76. Her character on the movie The Big Lebowski was Bunny. If you write out Bunny, it equals 76. 7-6, the day we got the Alton Sterling, Philando Castile stories. There's all kinds of red and blue in them stories. Dwayne Wade signed with the Chicago Bulls on that same day. They showed Alton Sterling's family crying or whatever, and they had the guy wearing the Miami Heat hat. Nebraska's football coach is even born on that day. Nancy Reagan was born on that day. We just had the release of John Hinckley Jr. out of prison, the guy who tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan. I mean, it just never ends. There's just 7-6, a very special date that they're connecting a lot of this to. But anyway, in regards to 124, Gene Wilder's nephew then, who is actually a famous director, or somewhat famous director, he had talked about how just before Gene Wilder died, he was listening to his favorite song by Ella Fitzgerald, or she was singing it, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. If you write out Somewhere Over the Rainbow, it equals 124. So he dies listening to a song that has 124 gematria on the day that leaves 124 days until the end of the year. And then, of course, that song has the connections to Kansas. We're not in Kansas anymore, Toto, right? Which connects back to the gays and rainbows. Kansas, of course, also has the big Civil War connection. It was the 34th and last state to join the Union before the Civil War. It became a state 34 days before Abraham Lincoln became the president. On 3/4, Lincoln died 4 years, 3 days after the Civil War began. He was born on the 43rd day. Civil War equals 43 in gematria. And then think about where the Nebraska Cornhuskers play. They play in Lincoln, Nebraska. Abraham Lincoln and Lincoln, Nebraska both have gematria of 60 as well. So also, like I just said, all these 7-6 stuff. There's more to this as well, but this is just some basic ones. Also, Obama nominated Merrick Garland. Think about Judy Garland in The Wizard of Oz and Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Merrick Garland on the 76th day of 2016. In gematria, Merrick Garland equals 71. Nebraska equals 71. African American equals 71. Gene Wilder dies 71 days before Tara Reid's 41st birthday. And you know what? There's a lot of stuff connecting back to Pope Francis as well. I just want to point out that Pope Francis was born 71 years after Abraham Lincoln died. And the word Catholic also equals 71. It equals 35 the small way, just like Nebraska. So she also dies on, or doesn't die. Her birthday is on Election Day then, November 8th this year. Election equals 83. Gene Wilder dies at the age of 83. I just found that kind of interesting. If you read out Judy Garland's real name, Frances Ethel Gum, it equals 71. If you write out just the word Wilder, Wilder equals 71 and 35, just like the word Catholic, just like Nebraska. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory even came out in the year 71. Also, Judy Garland in gematria equals 117. And if you watch my previous video, I talk a ton about this number here. Dwayne Wade was born on January 17th, a lot like 117. Last year, he went to the Nebraska game on September 5th, the day that leaves 117 days in the year. The CNN article about Cousin-Kaepernick was comparing him to Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali died of Parkinson's disease, that equals 117. He was also born on January 17th. The word quarterback equals 117. And what's interesting about that is I talked about the deaths of the Michigan State and the Nebraska punters or whatever, and then the LSU guy lived, and Nebraska's first championship was in 1971 when they beat LSU. But anyway, last year, Nebraska upset Michigan State on November 7th, 11/7, a lot like 117. That same weekend, Teddy Bridgewater got knocked out by a Rams player who was from Miami. Teddy Bridgewater is from Miami. The 1971 Super Bowl and the 1971 Orange Bowl, both in Miami at the Orange Bowl. And that, of course, was also the same day or same weekend that LSU got their first loss last year. So just interesting, Judy Garland would equal 117. He dies listening to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. LSU also going into their 117th season starting tomorrow. Anyway, Gene Wilder then, he also dies 79 days after his 83rd birthday. Very interesting because he dies of Alzheimer's disease that equals 79 in gematria. The word murder equals 79. He died in Stamford, Connecticut, that equals 79. Also the word Lincoln equals 79. I also found another interesting connection in regards to Stamford, Connecticut that I'm going to talk about when I talk about Teddy Bridgewater getting hurt. Hopefully I'll make a video later tonight. But Stamford, Connecticut is also where Jackie Robinson died. And Jackie Robinson goes along with the whole racial theme and whatnot that's been just pounded in the news. Stamford also reminds us of Stanford, the college where Andrew Luck went to college. Also, Iowa last year lost to Stanford in their bowl game. They lost 45-16. I even talked about how after the death of Lawrence Phillips and Obama coming to Omaha, and Lawrence Phillips, the year after he left, Nebraska's new quarterback was Scott Frost, who transferred from Stanford. I even talked about the first Super Bowl played in Miami that wasn't played at the Orange Bowl, and Stanford Jennings had a 93-yard kickoff return. Even the Dolphins bullying scandal that involved Nebraska Cornhusker Richie Incognito and Jonathan Martin. Jonathan Martin, of course, from Stanford. Also, he wore number 71 for the 49ers before. That was the last team that he played for. I mean, just think about all the 71s I was talking about. Nebraska equals 71. Think about Colin Kaepernick. The word Moses also equals 71. The Ten Commandments equals 71. Nebraska plays in the Sea of Red, just like the Kansas City Chiefs, right? And who does the Kansas City Chiefs have for their quarterback? They have Alex Smith, right? He was the quarterback with Colin Kaepernick in Super Bowl 47. San Francisco plays in Levi Stadium. Moses was from the tribe of Levi. I mean, and that's why I mentioned Obama nominating Merrick Garland earlier. Merrick Garland equals 71. They're both the lawgivers and whatnot. So sorry, hopefully I didn't get too far off topic, but there's a huge, huge connection between all of this. It's very hard to put together because it's absolutely so intertwined. And that's actually why it's taken me a few days to even make this video, because I was trying to put the words to it, you know, but let's move on here. So if you write out just the word Alzheimer's then and don't put the disease on there, that's what Gene Wilder died of, it equals 53. Nebraska with the S and K exception also equals 53. I talked about how N equals 5 and U equals 3, a lot like 53. I talked about the death of Dean Jones, the actor who drove Herbie and Herbie the Love Bug. Herbie is number 53, Nebraska's new coach, Mike Riley. Mike Riley equals 53. He was born in 1953. Even sometimes 1 month, 24 days is 53 days. Gene Wilder dies on what is normally the 241st day of the year. He actually died in a leap year on the 242nd, but 241st day, the 53rd prime is 241. The date numerology that he died on, 8 plus 29 plus 16, adds up to 53. And think about it, his death. Age 83, football equals 83. I'm telling you, there's something super significant to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Also, a lot of this goes back to LSU. And I'm not quite sure where the Michigan State guy who died, I'm not sure how that all fits in. So I feel like I'm missing a little bit of a piece, you know. But that's what I'm trying to make these videos for. See if other people know stuff that can help me out. But the Michigan State thing has got me wondering. It's also connected to the Iowa Hawkeyes. And the reason that is, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit, but Gene Wilder actually went to college at the University of Iowa where the Hawkeyes play. Anyway, in the movie Blazing Saddles, so in regards to the 53 stuff, this guy was the main actor in that movie. He was the black sheriff. He died at the age of 53. His name in gematria equals 150 the big way, just like Lincoln, Nebraska. Green Bay Packers also equal 150. Think about the connection to the Green Bay Packers and Colin Kaepernick. I also talked about the Green Bay Packers in regards to that game, the first game that Kaepernick didn't stand for the national anthem. The Packers' leading receiver was Geronimo Allison, who made the game-winning catch against Nebraska last year when he played for Illinois. He's even went to Iowa Western University. That's where the start of the Mormon Trail was. The game that Dwayne Wade went to was against BYU, the Mormon school. Anyway, Gene Wilder's nephew, his last name is Walker Perlman, that even equals 150, like Lincoln, Nebraska, like the star of this Blazing Saddles movie. And I'll talk about him as we move on. He has a lot of very interesting connections that connect back to the death of Dwayne Wade, and the reason why I know it's connected to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So, also, I guess, this guy's full name, Cleavon Jake Little, in gematria equals 60. Lincoln, Nebraska, the small way equals 60. Abraham Lincoln, the small way equals 60. Also, Thanksgiving equals 60. And the reason that I mention that is because if you look up the Blazing Saddles guy, they talk about his brother, who is also famous for singing the Rocky theme, right? And if you go back, I've talked a whole lot about Rocky and Philadelphia, and Rocky being super connected to Thanksgiving. He even beats Apollo Creed on Thanksgiving. The movie starts on Thanksgiving. I even talked about a lot of connections that seem to be connected to World War III in regards to Thanksgiving and possibly being one day off. I know that sounds weird, but it's interesting because Nebraska plays Iowa, the final game of the season, on October 25th this year, which is the day after Thanksgiving. In regards to all the 71 stuff as well, World War III, if you read it out like that, equals 71. World War III, if you read it out like that, equals 141 the big way, just like Thanksgiving. So just kind of interesting when I was looking through some of the people. You know, it doesn't even have to mean that World War III is going to start that day or anything. It could possibly just be connected to World War III that will eventually come. You know, they have it planned for some time, but just wanted to point that out. I'm not saying that World War III is going to happen around Thanksgiving, but World War III, whenever it does happen, it's connected to this year and all, or you know what I mean, to Thanksgiving. Just as Gene Wilder didn't actually play for the Nebraska Cornhuskers or go there, but he's connected to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. So moving on, Gene Wilder also, I'm pretty sure his death is connected to the World Series. I'm not exactly sure how it all fits in or what they're foreshadowing or what team, but he died 57 days before the World Series begins this year, and it's the 112th World Series. You know, Dwayne Wade goes to the Chicago Bulls. Chicago Bulls equals 112. Nebraska's punter, Sam Foltz. Sam Foltz equals 112. Bridgewater equals 112. Nebraska's even going into its 112th season of being the Cornhuskers this year. I mean, lots of 112s. But anyway, 57 days before the World Series. If you read out Gene Wilder, it equals 57. World Series equals 57 the small way. He was even born on the 162nd day of the year. David Huddleston, remember, the Big Lebowski, equals 162. Major League Baseball equals 162. There's 162 regular season games. World Series, the big way, equals 147. If you read out the Big Lebowski, it equals 147. Blazing Saddles equals 54. The word baseball equals 54. The first Major League Baseball game ever played was on 5/4 of 1871. 5 months, 4 days before the Great Chicago Fire. I even just noticed yesterday the Cubs won 5-4 against the Giants 54 days before the World Series. And I'm going to move on, but I'll leave a link to my Chicago Cubs video where I talk about the numbers 45 and 54 like no other and the connection to the Cubs. And I also mention that because 5/4/1871 was 145 years ago. The Great Chicago Fire, the anniversary will be on October 8th this year, 145 years. If you read out Chicago, Illinois, it equals 145. Like I said, Gene Wilder went to the University of Iowa, If you write out Iowa Hawkeyes, it equals 145. He died on August 29th. 829 is the 145th prime number. Famous for being Willy Wonka. Willy Wonka equals 145. And in regards to the football player deaths, we got the death of Kyle Callaway, the former Iowa Hawkeye, who died on July 2nd, but they didn't report it until July 5th. Kyle Callaway in Gematria equals 145, just like Iowa Hawkeyes. You know, how fitting. Anyway, in regards to all of the Miami connections, even, Dwayne Wade even comes from Miami to Chicago. Miami, Ohio is the first team that the Iowa Hawkeyes play this year, or tomorrow. So back to the death of Kyle Callaway then. I said he died on 7-2, but they didn't report it until 7-5. They did the same thing with David Huddleston. He died on August 2nd, and they didn't report it until August 5th. And the reason they did that is because it has to sync up with this stuff. So he dies they report his death 55 days before Gene Wilder dies. The small way Iowa Hawkeyes equal 55 in Gematria. The small way Kyle Callaway equals 55. Remember last year Tyler Sash, the Iowa Hawkeye player, died as well. Tyler Sash equals 55. Willy Wonka equals 55 in Gematria. Think about July 5th in regards to Gene Wilder. It can be written as 5/7. Gene Wilder equals 57. It was also 1 month, 24 days. Remember, Gene Wilder died on the day that leaves 124 days in the year, listening to Somewhere Over the Rainbow. That equals 124. I made I'll leave a link to the Death of Kyle Callaway video as well, but his death also connected to the College World Series. And if you go from the College World Series to the death of Gene Wilder, it's a span of 60 days. Callaway wore number 60. He died 60 days before Iowa's first game this year. And he died just outside of Tucson, Arizona and Vail, Arizona, which was very significant to the area that I live in. And all this foreshadowing they were showing me with the death of Yellow Smoke and whatnot. It's just a whole bunch of stuff. I'll leave a link. But, Coastal Carolina beat Arizona in the College World Series. Also, David Huddleston died 27 days before Gene Wilder. Sam Foltz, the Nebraska punter, wore number 27. The game that Dwayne Wade went to last year, it was Sam Foltz's 27th game. Sam Foltz got hurt. He didn't play the next week. He came back in the game against Miami. Kyle Callaway died on July 2nd, which can be written as 2/7 or 7/2. A lot like 27, 72. Gene Wilder dies on August 29th. If you write that out, it equals 72. If you write out 27, it equals 55, just like Willy Wonka, just like Kyle Callaway, just like Iowa Hawkeyes. The word Satan even equals 55. And a lot of people that are doing this, they're of the synagogue of Satan, the one that the Bible talks about, the false Jews that will rule in the end times. The Church of Satan, even founded in San Francisco. Think about Colin Kaepernick. So anyway, one of the big things I noticed when I was looking this up, I saw that pretty much the only people that he's famous for, or famous with, is his wife, Gilda Radner, and also a nephew, Jordan Walker Perlman. And he was a big spokesperson for his funeral, they talked about him talking to the media and whatnot. So I knew after I looked this guy up, I knew that it was completely connected to the Nebraska Cornhuskers. I wasn't crazy. So when you look him up, you find out that he's best known for being a screenwriter, producer, but best known for the movie The Visit. And he also has a movie called Constellation that came out in February of 2007. And it's now screened around the USA at conferences promoting racial healing in America. How fitting, right? How fitting for the times. If you write out Constellation in Gematria, it equals 159, just like Gene Wilder's real name, Jerome Silberman. But look at this movie. Look who it stars. It stars Gabrielle Union, right? Dwayne Wade's wife. They went to the Nebraska Cornhusker football game together. Gabrielle Union, Abraham Lincoln, the Union Army. She even plays the character named Carmel Boxer that equals 53. and also 116, just like Alzheimer's that Gene Wilder died of. African American, like I said, equals 116. So anyway, hopefully you see the web. You see what I'm talking about, why it's a huge puzzle. It's all completely connected together. I know Gene Wilder was old. Yeah, but he still died by the numbers. He died for a certain reason on a certain day. It's connected to all these football and whatnot stories, basketball stories, sports stories going on. And every year there's always all types of different sacrifices that are connected to the sports teams. I'm not so sure that it's going to be Nebraska versus LSU in the national championship or something like that, possibly foreshadowing like a Big Ten championship of Iowa and Nebraska. I'm not quite so sure if I'm sold on Nebraska. LSU definitely seems to be the team that they're really pointing to in a lot of this. And I think what the 1971 championship has to do with it is that they're foreshadowing the Super Bowl, which is most likely going to have the Indianapolis Colts in it. But, possibly it could be foreshadowing a rematch of some sort. And also, Nebraska fits the racial stuff that's in the news like crazy, the new Civil War type theme that they're trying to do, or the new civil rights movement, Nebraska fits all of that. So I'm just not so sold that they're going to have like the best season ever, I think they're just used in the coding. And all of the sports leagues, all of the coding that goes on in the sports leagues, the teams who win, they're all coded to other events that happen, just like how the Patriots won just after 9/11. I do want to figure out, though, how Michigan State really fits in there. I think that's a big piece to the puzzle that I'm missing. And possibly Michigan Wolverines have something to do with it as well, considering Jim Harbaugh connected to the 49ers. Also, his connection to Super Bowl 47, that was all about the number 34 that I talked about. The power was out for 34 minutes. Originally, they had 33, but when you look it up now, it says 34 minutes. The game was on 3-4. Can't even remember it all, or something like that. There's tons of 34 stuff. I'll have to go back and re-look at it. But 34, a number definitely connected to the Civil War that I talked about. Also, they played Baltimore, where the first death of the Civil War was. And also just think about Ray Rice and the domestic violence. Ray Rice beat his wife or girlfriend or whatever it was on the elevator. Prince died on the elevator. All of the players that are in the news for like beating their wife, it seems like, or at one point, they were all on the purple team. You had Adrian Peterson beating his kid. And then Domestic Violence Month is even in October now. And they have the purple ribbon. You think about Prince and the purple. So, who knows? I wouldn't be surprised, I guess, if it is LSU, Nebraska, but I just don't think it will be. All of this is just coded to other events that I think they have planned throughout the next year or so, Anyway, I'm just going to end it on some extra stuff that I noticed. Gene Wilder's real name, Jerome Silberman, it equals 69 in Gematria. He also was born on with a date numerology of 69. Johnny Depp, who also plays Willy Wonka, he was born on June 9th, 6/9. Think about Gene Wilder also being a Jew. And this year it's the 69th anniversary of Israel being recognized on November 29th. If you read out World War III, remember it equals 69. Think about the first two world wars and what happened because of them that created Israel. But, whatever, gonna leave it at that. Have a good one.